our back. Got the boys got our backs.
Looking good. Yeah?
Yeah.
Alright. I think we're rolling. So
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. So,
what an eventful week, huh?
what an eventful week. Yep. It's been pretty cool. It's been interesting.
Yeah, I've finally had like a glimmer of hope in a long time. Probably since like the summer. I think this last week has been like one of the reasons that's given me hope for humanity. Hopefully we can unite, you know?
Hell yeah. So, shit. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think it's probably, we'll start with the GameStop, I guess. Fucking giving it to these Wall Street motherfuckers, dude, finally. Feel like it's a win for the average Joe, you know?
Yeah. So, let's try to break it down for people, because mainly I want to help people understand what's going on.
Well, my understanding is that, like, it was basically a hedge fund. When in stocks you can short, and shorting means you basically betting on the stock to go down.
Hold on, I want to add something in there, because someone explained it to me, and it's like playing craps. So if you're watching people play craps, you can side bet. You can bet on people to crap out. So that's basically what it is, right? You're betting on that company to crap out or lose money, right?
Exactly. And like the more like intricate way is like somebody owns all those stocks. Well, when you're putting a short bet in, you borrow those stocks, sell them, and then watch the price drop, and then you need to buy them back and return them to the original owner. So when you're shorting a stock, you don't actually own the stock. You're borrowing it from a broker, okay? Now, the thing about shorting is that, like, when you buy a stock, if it goes to zero, that's all you can lose. So the thing about shorting, though, is that it can theoretically go into infinity, Your losses, you can only win so much. So if there's a stock's worth $100 and you short it, or if you buy $100 stock, if it goes to zero, you only lose $100. But if you short that $100 and it goes up to 1,000, well, you just lost $900. So the downside is incredible. Well, what these guys did is they shorted, they bought, I don't even know how like they do this, but it's definitely not legal. They shorted 140% of the stocks. And these guys on this Reddit forum, they, using publicly traded information, they found that out, and then they started posting about it. They did like a deep dive on like the stock market, and they basically came up with a list of stocks that are massively over shorted. So basically the hedge funds made pretty much once again not very a greedy move. Instead of just shorting like even 100% of the stocks, but to short over 140% of the stocks, it was just like disaster waiting to happen. And the thing on top of that is that they borrowed the money to do it. So they didn't even have the money, but then, so that's why it's blowing up in their faces, and I think they lost $70 billion, over the course of a couple of weeks.
Damn.
$70 billion.
They're pissed about that, huh?
Yeah, and then when the reason why they stopped the trading is because the hedge fund that bailed out the other hedge fund actually funds Robinhood.
Yep, I heard about that.
Yeah, and it's like, where's the ethical, is there no ethics anymore?
No. So, that was kind of what the beauty of it was like, the people are learning, and with the advent of the internet, they can come together and they can act on.
They're basically doing the regulator's job, They should not have been able to short 140%. And then, so these guys, pretty much band together, scrape up a couple, dollars each. And then they have like a 5 million person following now. It went from 2 million to 5 million. So it just goes to show that if you get, a lot of people with, if you get a lot of something little, you can still make a big difference. Now, if me and you had done all the research, and we placed our bet, but without the backing of having the movement behind it, it wouldn't have made a difference. So it's like people are doing the fundamentals, and then they're sharing. It's like open sourced. They weren't trying to be greedy with it. Unlike the Wall Street, unlike the hedge funds, these guys are putting out their information to everybody for free and just saying, hey, this isn't financial advice, but I'm just letting you guys know this is what I'm doing and this is why. And if you guys want to do the same thing, that's on you. I don't even really think they encouraged a lot of people in the beginning. It was just like the guy just made a post and said, look, this is what they're doing. And it was, all these brick and mortar stores. So it was, they went after Nokia, they went after AMC, they went after GameStop, and these Wall Street banks want them to fail. They want these.
That's where the term retail investors come in.
Yeah, no, the retail investors are just the average person. Yeah, not a hedge fund, not a corporation, not like a pension fund. Yeah.
Well, that's what's funny. That's what's cool, cause it's like it's a something that's gaining track with. Due to, a lot of speculation, and it's pretty much true. Like, people are getting their
stimulus.
Their stimulus, and then they're playing the game because people have extra time and then extra money. People aren't working, but now and then everyone could do it from their apps nowadays. So
I did the same thing. Like I didn't join Robinhood. I joined Webull, but when the pandemic hit, I had all this extra time, and I've always been interested in learning how the stock market worked. But never really, and then with freaking YouTube, it's so easy. I just, found a couple guys that I liked, and I just followed them. And it's like, man, over the course of a year, I've learned a hell of a lot more than when I first did, Like, I was always intimidated by the stock market because I didn't, know the differences in a call or a put. And it's like, man, and it is kind of complicated at first, but once you start making sense, and then you start learning how they're fucking us even more, it's like they're literally, taking the future of our country into their hands, and they're making it. They get to decide who's the winners and the losers, which companies are going to go bankrupt and which ones aren't, and it's just incredibly fucked up and unethical. And it's like, I feel like this week was good for our country and humanity in general because it put a spotlight on these unethical, how unethical the stock market is. And it's something that we need to fix, that and we need to fix our monetary system in general. Otherwise, we're always going to be peasants, It's like you have the top, 0.01%, and then you have the rest of us, and we're all in the same boat together because we don't make up the rules. These guys make up the rules, and if they make a bad bet and they lose money, the Federal Reserve just goes and bails them out and gives them, too big to fail. So it's like you have too big to fail and you have everybody else. And I think this week put a highlight on the fact that the little man does have power if we get behind a message and unite. It's like the power of the meme. Like, they underestimated the power of the meme. They're still shortening it right now. And it just goes to show you that they don't know when to quit. Like, we literally have to tell them, like, okay, this is enough. And we're putting our foot down. And, hopefully it works out. I think a lot of people are in, they're investing in GameStop, and, now they're going after Doggy Coin or Dogecoin. And it's beautiful because it's really just, middle finger to the, like, we've already lost everything, we're going broke. Like, people are literally starving out there. The food lines are incredible. And so when you get pushed into the back of you get pushed into a corner and you have nowhere to go, it's like, fuck it, dude. Yeah. Instead of buying some clothes or down payment on a car with that $600, fuck it, I'll go throw it on, Webull or Robinhood and see what happens. Roll the dice. Like, it can't get much worse. I mean, it can, but it's like, shit, what do we got to lose?
Yeah. That's pretty much what I did. I'm just trying to learn the game and shit. So that's what I was saying. Like, me personally, I realized my own power with my cell phone. I can get on these apps and I can throw some bucks at it and see what it does. And then collectively, that's what happened with Reddit. The power of the collective acting on one accord and shit. But so, cause how it used to be, my idea was like watching like movies and shit growing up in like Wall Street, and you're in a big building with a bunch of other guys and you're watching these numbers go. That was my idea of playing the stocks. Now the game's changing, so like theoretically there is no gatekeeper because for retail investors, like,
not that they used to be. You used to have to pay a stockbroker, and then like in order to buy Amazon, you had to give them a cut, pretty much. It's like you give them $2,000 to invest in Amazon, well, they're going to take like 5% or something like that.
Yeah.
So we've been able to cut that out and, you know, literally put the power of it in your phone. Yeah, the gatekeepers lost the keys.
But there's still, theoretically, though, that's what happened. But it proved what this event that happened this week with the GameStop and Dogecoin, because yeah, I put money in Dogecoin, and months ago when Musk was tweeting and shit or whatever, right. I put like $200, and then like a couple weeks later I put like 300 and something more. So basically it was like 560 that I put in. And then like it shot up, and it's been crazy ever since and shit. But for me, it's fun to just have skin in the game and be able to learn to how to look at the things and have your finger on the pulse of the market and shit like that.
I think what we were learning is like, you know, they tried to shut down GameStop, and then people they went right over. They're like, we're going to protest something. How do we show it? You know, and then Dogecoin was right there. It was next to go. So it's like, okay, you're going to shut us down from doing GameStop. Well, then we're going to go over here. It's like the ball's rolling. You know, now they're getting into silver, which I think is absolutely beautiful. You know, they call silver the bank killer because of just its history and how much it's been manipulated. Over the last 150 years, silver has been one of the most manipulated things. I mean, the whole stock market's manipulated. And the reason why people play it is because, you know, they figure, well, I could get lucky with it. And, you know, if you just have cash sitting on the sidelines, you know, your savings is getting inflated away. So it's like you got to play the game, or otherwise you're going to, you know, go, if you don't do anything to preserve your money, you're going to lose most of it. So now they're on to the silver. And that's...
So how I look at it is like dualities. You mentioned, I forgot what you were just talking about, but
how they moved from Dogecoin. They started with GameStop. They fucking shut that down. So then they moved to Dogecoin.
Oh no, well yeah, you said something about inflation. So it's like a lot of people don't even know that simple term. So I just want to keep it simple and maybe use some of our own experiences, and just try to be simple for a lot of the viewers out there.
Well, it's like if they printed 30% of all the money that was ever printed, the whole entire United States, they just printed 30% of that again this year, and it's like that's got to show up somewhere, you know.
Yeah, so like I've been trying to teach people, and a lot of people, they just don't understand like that money, that fiat doesn't have value. They're like, well, what do you mean? It buys me this, it buys me that, and I do this with it, and I do that. What do you mean it doesn't have value?
I think the best way when I was trying to look at inflation, you know, I read all about it, but the day that it clicked was that I realized that it doesn't cost more to make anything in particular. You know, it doesn't cost more to drill a barrel of oil, right? But where we're judging it by is we're judging it in the value of the dollar. So things don't get more expensive, the dollar just gets less valuable. So the cost of something doesn't go up, but only nominally, you know, with numbers. So it's like you can tell me a barrel of oil is worth $50 or $100, but it's like compared to what? What else can I get for 50 or $100? And that's why gold has 5,000 years of monetary history. And so if you really want to judge the value of something, you judge it in gold. And then you can compare like, oh, okay, so, you know, it's not getting more expensive. Things don't get more expensive. It just takes more dollars because they're not as valuable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that clicked in my head is like, oh, yeah, it's right. It's like, you know, it doesn't physically take more effort to grow a cob of corn, right? But some years it's worth $2, some years it's worth $3, and it goes up and down, but it costs the same amount in physical labor. But what we're judging it by, you know, the dollar is losing its value. And I don't know, for that reason, that actually helped me try and understand the concept of it. You know, because what they said is like, you know, an ounce of gold historically has always been about a month's worth of rent. You know, so the rent might go up and down in, you know, the value of the dollars, but in general, if you have an ounce of gold, you could use that, you know, theoretically anywhere pretty much, and you get the same result over time.
Yeah. But so to add to that, there's the fact that they're printing it like you're saying. So there's an infinite amount theoretically that they can just keep printing, and when you do that, you're debasing and devaluing it. And like you said, it actually just, the price of something doesn't cost more. It's the value of the dollars declining. But
it's basically like supply and demand,
that's so like back to the duality thing. This is how I view crypto. It's like almost the opposite of that. It's decentralized. Opposite, yeah. It's not controlled by the banks and the Federal Reserve and all them. There's a finite amount of it. So the value of it actually goes up in dollar values.
In dollar values, yeah.
Because the dollars are decreasing, so you need more of those dollars to buy one Bitcoin.
The cool thing about Bitcoin is that there'll only ever be 21 million of them created, right? And that's written into the algorithm. So it's like the Federal Reserve and the government, they can change the rules on you whenever you want, just like with this GameStop deal. But the cool thing about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that when you get into it, you know what you're signing up for. You know the rules of the game. You know what the rules of the game are, and that's what gives it its value. Bitcoin, you can't build anything on. You can't eat a Bitcoin. What gives it its value is that there will only ever be 21 million of them. It's scarcity. You can dig up more gold and get inflation that way. But Bitcoin is like deflationary in that sense that its value compared to the dollar, can basically Bitcoin has no top because the dollar has no bottom as far as value. They can print an infinite amount of fucking dollars, but there's only ever be 21 million of them.
So this analogy might not pertain to everybody, but it's like if you have cocaine, an ounce of cocaine, and you step on it, that means you add something of less, like baking soda or whatever, less value. You add it, and you increase the amount of cocaine you have from 1 ounce to 1.5. But it's not the power, the potency and the power of it is less because it's stepped on, it's diluted.
You still have to do the same amount, of cocaine. You can make your lines this big,
but the percentage
or this
of
big.
it. So a gram of cocaine is that's stepped on is the percentage of actual cocaine in there is less than a gram of pure. It's the same thing with the dollar. And
Bitcoin is like that 100% pure, and like the dollar is that crack 10%, fucking watered down bullshit.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, and what it always starts out condensed and worth a lot, right? And then you can have like a brick of cocaine that's pure, for that big and make it worth 50 grand, or you can pretty much cut it down to like 0.001% and have a whole room full of it, but it's still
You're
the same.
Not gonna get as much money for it.
Yeah. It's basically what the government does. They like inflation because they're
basing the value of it.
The reason why the government loves inflation is because the government money, as we see it, the Federal Reserve now is just an issuance of debt, and we borrow, up into the $4 trillion. Like last year is how much more we went into debt. So we're already at $28 trillion, and we're probably going to put on another $3 or $4 trillion now, and it's just unfathomable. Like we can't get out of this. It's a debt trap. So we like inflation because we're paying back our debt with cheaper dollars. So that we'll only, the number how much we're in debt is still going to be 28 trillion. But if we have inflation, we get to pay that 28 trillion off with now devalued cheaper dollars.
Right.
So they don't want deflation because if we have deflation, the government will go bankrupt. They won't be able to even appear to be able to pay back their debt. So that like the debt bubble is something that a lot of people don't really comprehend. It's like 28 million, billion, trillion. It's all the same to other people, and they don't understand the consequences of it.
It used to be backed by gold, and yeah.
Well, we're gonna lose. People are starting to lose confidence in the system, basically, and
that's what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's why I say that like crypto is the opposite of that whole system and how that works.
We have no guy at the top. The decentralized part of it is what makes it so beautiful. So instead of the Federal Reserve or the government being able to switch the rules up on you whenever you want, with cryptocurrency, it's written in the program what it's going to do. So you have full, you can have full confidence that if you, buy a Ethereum or Theta or whatever, that it's not going to get devalued later on down the line. So we're basically switching over our confidence from the dollar, and we're just switching it over to cryptocurrencies. And the government's not happy about that, because literally their way of controlling you through the monetary system, they're losing the monopoly on that now, and they know it. And a lot of people laugh at Bitcoin and they don't think that it'll ever replace the dollar, but the governments are actually concerned about that. And there's nothing they can do about it, though, and that's what's beautiful about it, because they can't steal it from you as long as you have it in a cold wallet. They can't confiscate it. It's literally like the one thing the government can't take away.
Yeah, I mean, so I urge people to try to understand that shit and learn it, because that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to help people learn it, and based off what I know and stuff. But
a lot of people don't even understand that there's an issue, the issue with our money, or something feels weird, but they can't put their finger on it. And cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general is the way out of our.
Well, like the average dumb. I mean, I hate to say it, but the dumb people are like, things are just getting more expensive. It's more expensive. It's more. No, your dollars are less valuable, so you need more of them to purchase the same thing.
And I've been trying to figure out, like, what's the easiest way, because, how do you get a concept to people that don't even know there's an issue? They don't know that there's an issue with the monetary system. They
but
don't
like
know
you
that
said,
inflation
they do, and that's when they're like, why are things getting more expensive? And they complain about that, but they don't dive deeper to truly understand what's going on.
I think when you hear somebody say that, that's an opportunity to go, it's not getting more expensive.
Yeah.
It's not worth more. It's not valued more.
The candy bar that cost a nickel back in 1930, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, the value of it is the same.
Yeah, but the dollar is shit.
It's like when you work your ass off, 8 hours, the value of that 8 hours, you might get paid more, in a number wise, but you still put the same amount of value into it.
Is there a number that we could put on the dollar right now? Like, so if compared, the dollar from 1930 or whatever,
13,
a strong when the dollar was strong and whatever, versus now, what would the dollar be now back then? It'd be like what?
3 cents.
3 cents?
Yeah. So if you had 3 cents back in 1913.
So that's where that 5 cents for a candy bar. It's like that's how much you're paying now is almost $1.50 or something, right?
They would have penny.
I mean, I watched that go up, candy and soda and shit like that.
They'd have penny candies, like literally a penny would get you a fucking shit ton of candy.
Yeah.
And now, like, I don't even know why we fuck with pennies anymore. It's like, it's just a waste.
It is.
It's becoming obsolete. Physical cash is becoming obsolete more and more every day. And like, I hope people wake up to that fact.
I went to the bank the other day, and like, they're saying there's a shortage and we should donate.
They don't even want to let you take any money out.
Yeah, no, I was depositing a bunch of like ones that I've been saving and shit, but I just thought the same thing, like this shortage. So to me, it's like, well, one, what you said is there's no need for it really, and then because the value of the dollar has been debased so much, but then also I see it as them trying to switch over, like.
Yeah, no, like, they with the whole coin shortage deal, there wasn't a shortage of coins, but they're getting you used to not seeing physical cash.
Yeah, and using
a lot of places they told you if you don't use a debit card, we can't sell you anything, or like exact change only. Or you use a debit card, so they're already getting into your head that, oh, okay, we're having a shortage of money. We need to, do digitally.
Yeah, I went to In-N-Out, and then like, they were like, oh, do you want your change back, or should we just donate it? I'm like, motherfucker, I want my change back, homie. I don't know this organization that you're donating to. They're probably corrupt as fuck too. But my point with like what you said is that they're trying to get you used to just swiping the card or whatever and just use it, easy transaction like that. So I see the switch over going to digital from the physical, because like you said, there's no need for it. We were talking about it earlier as far as like, just if you're dealing with a lot of money, like bigger transactions and shit, like if a couple $1,000 transactions, you could just throw a couple coins, real value, real gold coins, and do a transaction like that.
The value
versus
of gold
versus stacks of money,
Yeah, the thing, it's like, when they say they printed 30% of the whole entire world's money last year, they didn't actually print anything. They just typed in some freaking digits over
Oh,
here and they
really?
moved them over there. Yeah, there's only 2 or 3% of actual physical money. The monetary out of the monetary supply, there's only 2 or 3% of it that's actually physical.
Yeah. So it comes back to like what we're saying with the just the stocks and the cryptos and how they're fucking over everything. They have that ability and that power to just create value, but there's
Yeah,
not actually
it's
no
too much
real
power.
value.
It's so much
There's
power.
not. There's a difference between really creating value, like if you have a business and you have a service or a product
Yeah,
that is actual
you
value.
created something, that's
But
value. Yeah.
they're creating this illusion of value, which is the dollar, which is not backed up by anything. Well, it
That's
used
why
to be
they
backed up
call
by.
it modern monetary theory, where we can just print money and give it to people, and then they'll be able to buy our little goods. But it's a wrong concept because you still have to produce things
Right.
in order to have anything to buy with that money. So
Right.
if you have this crazy
Like a
monetary
barter system.
yeah, but if
It's
you
like,
have all this extra cash in the system but nothing to buy, the people that are buying, are buying things, they have way too much cash, so they're gonna bump up the prices. That's when inflation starts hitting. It's like with all this extra money in the system, if there were things to actually buy, then inflation wouldn't get as crazy as quick. But the fact that the real GDP is down like 10%,
yeah.
it's going to cause hyperinflation eventually to hit because people are betting, or bidding on less goods with more money. Right? Does it make kind of sense? Like how
Kind of lost
inflation
me,
hits.
but I know what you're saying, but
If we increase the monetary supply by 10%, but we also increase 10% more goods, then there wouldn't be inflation because it
right.
would level out.
This is back to providing value.
Exactly.
You can't just print. You can't just create value from nothing.
You can't print yourself to prosperity.
Growing, like, I mean,
What scares me is that these people know exactly what happens when you debase a country's monetary money. Like that's what happened. That's what led Hitler to get in power because the Weimar, they were super progressive. The German politics, they in the 1920s printed a bunch of money, devalued their dollar, and then when hyperinflation hit, Hitler was able to blame the Jews basically for causing hyperinflation, and then that's how he became like the monetary policy is dangerous. Like that's how dictators get elected or take control, is because when you debase the value of a country's currency, you're stealing from them. It's like you have to do something about it, and so people get desperate when that starts happening, and that's what's going on right now, and it's just the beginning. This whole COVID thing and this people, they think that they're going to get UBI, universal basic income. It just, when they've tried doing anything like that, it has not worked. Historically speaking, it will not work. So it really does kind of scare me that this is the direction that we're going. Janet Yellen, the former Federal Reserve Chairman, is now the Treasury Secretary. It's like, why do we have the division, and now it's like, now they're married. The Federal Reserve is basically married to the government now. And it's frightening. There's no checks and balances anymore. Like we've completely lost control.
That's what's exciting about what's going on with everything in these recent current events and like just people just having that light bulb light up in their head and realizing like the power of the internet and like
something
coming
clicked.
together and like information and shit like that. And
I think that's like last week something clicked in people's minds where something made sense. Something finally clicked and they're like, I'm still trying to figure out exactly, what it is. And it's like, yeah, it started with GameStop, but it's not going to stop there though. What happened with GameStop is going to continue. And then it went to Dogecoin, and then it's going to go to silver. They're already talking about, hopefully people buy physical silver and don't get caught up in the whole paper market deal. Like I hope people actually start to really truly do their research and realize that the SLV, it's just paper contracts. You're not buying, it's not backed by any physical asset. Like you'd be better off just going down to your coin shop and actually buying a couple ounces of physical silver.
Yeah.
That could help break, the bank's monopoly on it, because they own like 100 billion ounces, something crazy. Like There's so much physical silver that's controlled by the banks.
Basically, we need to kind of detach ourselves and our feelings from fucking the idea of monetary, the fiat currency. Step away from that and actually
the quicker people understand that, the better,
where
right?
the real value is, yeah.
And everybody has their own learning curve, you know. And I started learning about monetary policy probably 10 years ago with Ron Paul in the Fed movement, and it got me thinking about like what our real issues are, you know. And all this inequality and everything, it's not it's not race, it's not a black or white thing.
Yeah,
what's caused this inequality
that's what we were talking about
is the
earlier.
monetary policy.
I'm like, yeah, like earlier, with everything that went on with them shutting down, like basically closing the doors and shit, fucking with the GameStop and Dogecoin. Yeah, I forgot what I was saying.
What are the cause of inequality?
Yeah. So like
symptoms of it, I guess. You know, GameStop is a
so
symptom.
people want to talk about like the racial injustice and or opportunities, lack of, I guess, equal opportunity and shit. Fucking, but they're not mad about what, like, we should be in the streets rioting and burning those banks down and shit like that. Like,
there is inequality, and people haven't really put
it's
their
financial.
finger. Yeah, it starts with finances, like we were saying earlier. If we were actually on a level playing field, and everybody, you know, their hard-earned, you know, money didn't get inflated away, like people would be happier, and I don't think we'd be focusing on our little differences. Like the big elephant in the room is the monetary policy, and if we're able to fix that, all the other little differences aren't going to be as big. It's just an amplifier, you know. Yeah, there is inequality in the system, but
and
it starts with the
I've
money.
been saying
It's
it
the
for
most
a
important
minute.
thing.
I think I've said it on one of our last one, but like people want to blame capitalism. That's kind of like the trend right now with the younger generation, and a certain group of people or whatever. But fuck, I keep blanking out. What was I talking about? I think people need to be people are demonizing capitalism. I think we need to be more capitalistic.
We've never tried capitalism, and we did in the 1800s, and that's why the 1800s with the the robber barons, people were able to create a lot of wealth.
We're trying it now, but they're short stopping us. They're cutting us off. But
that's
why we need to keep going harder, because that shows us that, you know, we're in the right direction, and they're fucking probably shitting right now. Like, oh fuck, these fools are fucking smart and they're getting it together. And that's why everybody needs to do that. Everybody needs to be more capitalistic. We're not trying to rely on this government or these like these big banks and all these all people
freedom,
in power.
you know?
It's like, why are we trying to convince them to do things and change our world, and like voting and believing that even works, and like saying like, oh yeah, we need this person in to do this and that, and fuck this person. No, fuck them all. Let's worry about our own immediate economy. Like economic empowerment is huge for me right now. Like I used to hate money because of just the same thing, almost like fuck capitalism. Yeah, but I always had an understanding of it, but now I'm like really understanding it, that
I think
it's just blowing my mind.
What it is
what's
like
happening.
Fiat money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
Like literally, Bitcoin is like a gift from God. It can bring peace.
And that's what I'm saying. Like we need to get into that and find and dig in on all that shit, and learn and study, because we need to study their moves and what they're doing and how we could go against that, and because it evens the playing fields. And that's what I was saying we should be mad about, as far as, oh, we're complaining about the system and like how it's racist and there's unequal opportunity, and like this they just showed like right now, like past couple of days, how much they're fucking us. And it's not about race, it's just about anybody trying to come
their
up.
Hands have shown, like, we know their cards, we know what they're playing with now, you know. It's like, yeah, they're holding pocket aces,
and they were doing so well for so long based off our ignorance and our inability to play the game, or our misunderstanding,
inability to organize.
Yeah,
you know, how do you know what the issue is if you don't even know there is an issue? You know, so a lot of people don't realize that this is a game. It's the monetary game, you know. They're playing it at a different level, right? And then you're not even in the game yet. Most people aren't even in the game. They're not even playing it.
That's what I'm saying. Like once
you start playing it,
we have to learn the rules, though.
Learn the rules, and then when they break the rules, that's when you got to call it out and say, hey, like when they're shorting 140% of GameStop, it's like, hey, they're breaking the rules. We need to call them out.
But that's not what I'm saying. That could have, if they didn't do that, that could have empowered a lot of minorities, a lot of people, or just poor people, not even minorities, just lower class. Like, I don't even want to say race, but the classes, because that affected everyone.
It's like, how fucked up is it that they wanted GameStop to go bankrupt? Basically, the hedge funds wanted to close the doors and, lose 15,000 people's jobs who probably are lower, income, right? And then here come these, like, Robin Hoods.
It's funny, like a week a month or so ago, maybe a little bit more, there's 2 GameStops in Redlands, the one at Citrus Plaza and then the one by Walmart. The one by Walmart closed down, and I'm like, damn, really? But look at what's happening now. Like, what you were saying is like they're about to go down.
They are.
But so.
And
I mean,
basically the hedge funds don't care about these people's jobs. It would nothing would have made them more happy if they had got the nail in the coffin and said, "Yeah, we closed down GameStop." Ha ha ha. Having no feelings or understand, or even they don't care that people are losing their jobs by the
And who was the guy? I saw a video on the internet. I didn't really do too much research back into it, but it was like one big guy, some guy that makes a lot of money, and he was like talking shit like, all you guys are just collecting your stimulus checks and fucking up the game and fucking my shit up or whatever. Basically, that's what he was saying. And it's like, bro, what the fuck? You're the one that's, like you said, trying to fucking make companies go under. And, like, these are people that scrape by for their living. You know what I mean? Like,
they had their system and they were killing it, and they weren't counting on other people figuring it out.
But they were eating off of other, like, they're starving people pretty much.
Pension funds, they made a lot of money moving these pension, and people are and if the stock market goes, unfortunately, a lot of people's pensions are going to go too. A large portion of their retirement is going to go down the drain.
Because a lot of the people's pensions went into the stock market?
Exactly, yeah.
So who
these money managers control.
Who's allowed to do that? So basically, the companies that you work for, like if I worked for a company, but so that company allowed that though, essentially, right?
So you have like your 401k. If you just put your money to your 401k, you basically give it over to somebody else and say, here, you invest it for me.
So one of the guys that I follow right now, he talks about this. Well, Robert Kiyosaki talks about it too, but another one talks about it as with pensions and 401k. It's like you're trusting other people to with your money for the future, but you need to do that yourself. You need to just fucking take responsibility and accountability and learn how to do it yourself, because what they're doing with your money is they're flipping it while it's saving, for your future. Yeah. They're taking it, adding up all these people from one company. Say you work at a warehouse, your pension, all your homies that you work with, all their pension, they're taking it and making investments with it, gambling with it, with your money. Why don't you gamble it with it yourself? Letting them do it is stupid to me. It's like
they're paper pushers, and what they're doing, what they're investing your money in, isn't what they're investing their money in. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like you get into a stock and it's going up. Well, they see it's at the top, and as they're pulling their chips off the table, they're using your money to replace it with. So, investment funds, they're getting into like gold and metals and stuff right now, and in themselves, but they're putting other people's into, Tesla or whatever. Tesla might not be a bad one, but it's just an inflated stock, and it's not ethical to me, I think we're giving them their power. We're giving them so much power by not taking responsibility. That's exactly what it is.
Exactly. We're giving them the power. We need to stop giving away our power. We need to take our power back. And that's what the internet does. I mean, one way or another, anyway, like
gives you the possibility of it.
So even if you don't say fuck your 401k, take your money out and fucking start a side hustle, because we need more than one job. Recently I heard if you have one job, you're one job away of having no job.
Yeah.
And like
seriously.
Just the opposite is like most millionaires have 7 streams of income. So it's like if you played the game like how you were told and you went to college and you have one career, and something can happen, especially now because technology is taking over these jobs, bro. So times are changing so fast. We can't trust these people to make investments for us. We need to learn how to invest ourselves in ourselves and then for ourselves. So either if you're taking your pension, maybe you're not investing it in the stocks or cryptos, but you're investing in a food truck or your homie's food truck, you know? That's how we need to play the game and use our money and be capitalistic. That's what I'm saying. We need to be more capitalistic.
It's like the more you rely on the government, you know, you're less free. The more you rely on some stockbroker to handle your money, like the less free you are. The more control that you have over your own, you know, finances. Once you become financially free, then you can truly be free.
But they don't teach us about taxes and how to start a business, like how to start an LLC.
If we knew that, then we wouldn't need like a big portion of the stock or the stock market is literally like the stock market.
So back to what we said earlier, it's like they're capitalizing off our ignorance.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So if we weren't so ignorant, we could capitalize on ourselves, and then that's where capitalism isn't evil. It's only right now it's offset, it's imbalance. So we need to bring the balance to it and take our power back.
Capitalism is what's brought this much freedom so far. Before capitalism, there was no middle class. It was like, you know, feudalism. It was like the feudal times. And now we're going, you know, when capitalism actually created the middle class. You know, instead of just the haves and have-nots, there's these people who invested in, you know, their capital into other businesses, and that money made money and brought them out of poverty.
What is crony capitalism, though?
Crony capitalism is like the revolving door, basically, where, you know, so the head of the SEC, you know, was, you know, a lot of them used to work for these big banks. So what happens is these guys, they know all each other, all the hedge fund managers and everything. So when hedge fund managers become the head of the SEC, the regulatory, you know, part of the government, they have each other's backs. It's your cronies, it's your buddies. So crony capitalism is basically you helping out your buddies to keep the money within yourselves.
And then it comes down to power, I think. It's like
exactly. That's exactly what it is. So what's funny is that like the Bush Republicans were known as crony capitalists, you know, with giving their
that's
money.
Why people go to wars.
Like the government government projects, they would just have no big contracts and they would give them to their buddies. Right, so that's how Blackwater made, you know, billions of dollars. We had a war, you know, we still have a war in Iraq, and then instead of having an open free market to compete for those, they gave their buddies a job.
But that happens all within politics. It's like
so that's politics. The whole thing coming back to the dollar. You know, the dollar is the bloodiest, got more blood on its hands than anything because we forced other countries to trade. You know, that's the petrodollar. You know, we force other countries to use the dollar to sell their oil, and therefore that's why we're the reserve currency, because everybody's relying on the dollar. They do all their books in the dollar. So
they bought into the system basically.
And then we what gives the dollar value is the threat of force. If somebody were to try and move away from the dollar, the threat of us invading them is very real. If you look at the Middle East, you know, there's only a few countries left right now that don't have a central bank. You know, like Iran is like one of them, you know.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to make that distinction between like crony capitalism and what I view as like real capitalism. And so crony is a bunch of big guys with their power, and then it's basically bullying, but also feeding off the ignorance. So
yeah, they're giving we don't know about this stuff till years later, and then when we do find out about it, we go, "Oh, that sucks. They're corrupt."
Exactly. So I think one way to dig ourselves out of that and be more capitalistic, which is what I'm pushing and encouraging everyone, be more capitalistic, more. Don't demonize it, be more. But
don't give up on yourself.
It's learning. It's because the less ignorant you are, the less power they have over us.
It's completely true. You know, the Corning sayings, knowledge is power. It's like, it really is. You know, and it's like we were talking about with technology, it's, you know, like it's hyperbolic too. You know, it's exponential growth. So like the more knowledge you have, the more powerful you become. It's not just like a 1-to-1. Oh, you learn this. It's like you learn it, you utilize it, and then once you get to a certain point, you know, that's why I look at the billionaires. Look at Elon. You know, when he made his first, $1 million, and then he made his first billion, and then he made 200 billion. It's just like whoop.
Exactly.
And that's the power of technology. It's good and it's scary. It's a good thing and it's also a scary thing. The amount of the way technology works. Technology works in that exponential form. So we're probably right now, at the 10%, 20% tilt, and dude, these next few years are gonna fly up, and it's just gonna get more and more intricate. Everything's just gonna, like, we're in a complex system right now, and that's the beauty about cryptocurrencies, because it decentralizes everything. It takes the power away for the arbitrary. It's just, we have all these arbitrary rules, and they're like, why? It's like cryptocurrency doesn't have arbitrary rules. It doesn't pick the winners and the losers. It's just open sourced. There's no secrets, and it is what it is. It allows for a truly free society. And once people understand that cryptocurrencies are literally going to save, like,
so I urge everybody out there,
look into it. Don't just take our words for it.
Don't be scared of it. People trust the dollar so much and shit, but they need to just open your mind up and just look at things differently and start learning things, because
and play around with it. Don't take all your money, but take 1% of whatever savings you have, and then start playing around with it and other things.
So one thing that I've been following, I kind of have this mentor that I found that I have personal contact with, but he does videos and shit or whatever, but he basically broke down Bitcoin. Like, it's cool, just buy it bit by bit. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't have to have a whole Bitcoin. You could have a bit of a Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
A lot of people, they call it price cost averaging. So you just buy a little bit once a month. Maybe every other.
Because it goes up, I think every 4 years it spikes. So, like, you're right. Like, you might, when you look at it short term, you're not really maybe gaining, but in the long term you do eventually. Like,
the thing against Bitcoin is they say that it crashes. It crashes 80%. But if it goes up 200, 1,000%, and then crashes 80%, you're still coming up. Yeah. So it's like, they look at all these crashes. The crashes are getting lower, and the highs are getting higher, and the lows are getting higher too.
You have to look at it as a long-term investment. That's why it is.
You're investing in humanity.
It compounds.
When
Even
you buy
if there's
Bitcoin,
those fluctuations, those dips, it's still, over time, it's compounding.
Yeah, more. Exactly. And when you invest in Bitcoin, you're investing in peace and unity and freedom.
And
when you use dollars,
to the people.
You're giving power to the people. Like, crypto is the people's money. Gold is God's money, and crypto is here to free the people. I really do believe that. And it happened at the right time. It's like we had, the 2008 crash and then Occupy Wall Street right around 2010, and Bitcoin was created at the same freaking time. It's like, it's like meant to be.
If I'm not mistaken, but the person, or the it's synonymous or anonymous.
Satoshi.
The person or people that created it did it to do exactly what we're saying, is basically go against the banking system, and like,
they knew that the banks are going to keep inflating money, and they created this to have a store of value where it was based on honesty, value, so that they can't create it out of thin air and then devalue what you already had. That's all. It's only thing it does is just, you had one of these, now he has one of these, and now you don't. Or if you had 10 and you gave him 2, now we know and we can trust it. It takes trust out of the deal. Mm-hmm. Like, when you put your money in the bank, you're trusting that they're not going to steal it from you.
Yeah.
When you get a Bitcoin, you don't have to trust it. The system has that layer built into it, where I don't have to trust that you'll pay me back.
So
if we make an agreement, a contract, and you fulfill your end, you're getting paid.
Your Bitcoin doesn't go through any transactions unless you want it to, right?
Yeah, and it's like, it goes straight from me to you.
If you put money in the bank, they're flipping it. Like I said, they're taking your money and making their investments and flipping it.
Yep.
That's why you go to the bank, and how many digital dollars, how much money are they supposed to have at the bank, but they only have whatever, 50
They were
grand
supposed to
maybe
have
or
a
whatever.
reserve.
Right,
So
right.
when you deposited $100, they used to be able to loan out 90% of it or whatever. But they still had to keep 10% back to you.
Exactly.
And believe it or not, that was much
Exactly.
better than what it is right now, because
Really?
now you can deposit $100, they loan out $100 or more dollars.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem with our debt-based system right now, is that we could never pay back all the debts in the world. It's literally physically impossible the way that they do, non-reserve lending and interest. It's like if you borrowed $100 and from me, and you got to pay back $10, all right, 10%. It's like, if out of that $100, if I charge you 10%, you have to go get that money from somewhere else now. You can't just keep that $100 and pay me back with it. So, like, literally, the way it works is that now you borrowed $100, and then you have to go do a service with somebody else, and they borrowed $100 from. So everything's just based on debt. It's based on people borrowing from an institution to this, and we can never ever
I think that's what we talked about the other day. That's basically what the dollar is. It's a promissory note or a debt note.
It is.
It has no value behind it. It's an IOU. It's like when someone writes IOU, blah blah blah, and they give it to you. That's what we're dealing with right now. So back to I want to say this because the Bitcoin, like, coins were actually the first money. Like, we didn't have dollars. It was coins, and they're silver and
based on weight,
Yeah, and they had real value to them. So that's what's cool about Bitcoin. It's like a digital bit, but a coin, because I think they named it that because, like, it actually has real value.
Yeah.
Like, versus the store of value too, like, versus the fiat dollar. It's like,
I think this is important too. When Rome fell, they had their coins and they all weighed like a certain amount.
Right.
Well, what happened was, over time, they realized that we could shave
the bits
off of it.
Yeah.
And people won't notice. Well, eventually, people started noticing. So, if you have an ounce of gold, but you shaved off half of it, and people figured it out. Well, now I need two of those, to get the same value out of it. So people caught on to it, and that's what eventually, because Rome debasing the value of their currency, that eventually led to hyperinflation and the fall of it as well. Like,
that's crazy.
It made them weaker, because people eventually lost faith in the currency. And that made them weaker, and then I think the Mongols or whatever came in, but the main thing that weakened their economy, which eventually made the whole country weaker, was the debasing of their coins.
But you can't do that with Bitcoin.
Now you can keep breaking it down. I think like one Satoshi is like one, and then it would be like 10 million. So like if you had 10 million, if Bitcoin was worth $10 million, one Satoshi would be 0.000001, and it would be $1. So if Bitcoin ever gets up to 10 million, one Satoshi with the lowest right now, and they could always write it into the program, I think, to add more, break it down further, but it's divisible. So like, even though we can't create any more of them, the units and what they're measured in, we can keep breaking them down. So if it gets to the point where we need to add a couple more zeros, we can do that on that end, not how the government does it by adding zeros on the other end. The government can turn $10 million into $100 or $1 billion by adding zeros to it, but we're adding zeros the other way. It's like we're doing the completely opposite way of what they're doing it. And like Elon said, it's inevitable. Like, it wasn't inevitable. All we wanted was a level playing field, and now we have the means to do it. We just need to get more people on board.
And so let me add to that, because that's goes back to like you said, taking the bits off a coin. So you have a coin, a gold coin, and you take a little tiny bit. It's not much, but then you just keep getting little bits, bit by bit, and you have a whole coin. So that's why I want to encourage people to go out there and buy those coins bit by bit. Like, people are looking at it like, it's 34,000 right now, I can't afford it or whatever. Just keep buying it. Like you said, the dollar cost average, just keep buying a little bit here and stacking it, and eventually you'll have a whole coin, and that coin may be worth $1 million one day or whatever, 500,000 or whatever the case is, even 100,000. It's like, you're still, and over time, I think it's just
It
gonna get
adds
more
up.
and more. Like,
It's like I looked at how much money like I wasted on beer or whatever, and I started equating it to terms of silver. It's like, man, every two packs of 6 packs I buy, that could have been an ounce of silver.
And you know what? I'm looking at money the same way now. Like I'm looking at all, like the just everything nowadays just different. Like I don't want these fiat dollars. I want to invest it in like some silver or some Bitcoin or something that's gonna compound.
Something, and I want to, instead of wasting my money on something, alcohol, which is, not going to help my situation out.
Exactly.
If I take that and just add it to something on the good side, that eventually will compound and become something eventually.
Yeah.
And like I wanted to start like a Twitter like sober for Bitcoin or something, just something funny, but it kind of made sense. It's like if you're taking wasted, value, you're substituting wasted value for positive value. It's like that's going to be that exponential value, 10 years down the line. That's going to compound, and instead of having an addiction problem, you could have buy a house or something.
But you're right. There is like an addictive force, I want to say, with like gold and silver. You want more of it.
I've been more broke since I started investing in silver. I have like less cash, right? I have less cash, but I have like more silver. So it's like I constantly kind of feel like I don't have any money, but then I think I'm like actually. I got a lot more, money, real money sitting over here.
It's a store of value. You're not losing. It's not going down in value. If you got 10 grand right now, 10 grand in 10 years is
oh yeah.
What's it? Well, who knows?
The Federal Reserve has an inflation quota. They want to hit like 2 or 3% a year. And so if you start with $100, next year it'll only be worth 97. The year after that, it'll only be worth like 94. The year after that, like 3 years, you already lost like 10% of your money.
So they want that because they're debts, right? Mm-hmm. Like you were saying, like they can pay off their debts with basically
cheaper dollars, basically. Yeah.
So they can get in debt now, pay it 5 years later, and it will be cheaper essentially because the number is the same, but the actual value of it is less. Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of
a sneaky fucking way.
It can be, yeah. That's why I'm encouraging people. Just like I said, don't be ignorant, get smart.
Well, and it's like everything within moderation, But they took us off the gold standard in 1971, and like it's been 50 years of a completely fiat system. Whenever they've tried this, it's never made it more than like 100 years. Like that's the thing that people understand is that this has been done in the past and it has never worked. It's always ended in hyperinflation. And the only reason we're not having hyperinflation right now is because we're in a depression because nobody has jobs. Mm-hmm. And then when the government gives us stimulus money, a lot of people, that's why the stock market's, how is the stock market all-time highs, but we have like pretty much the worst economy since the Great Depression in the 1930s.
But there's a term for it that I learned it, but we've talked about it before, but we're in a inflation and deflation right now.
Yeah, there's like stagflation.
Stagflation, I think that's what it's called, right?
Yeah, I think that's where you have inflation.
You have both going on at the same time.
You do.
So what's happening is
things like TVs or what, like anything
the shit
that's
you don't
technology.
Need.
Anything that's technology is getting cheaper.
And services are too.
Yeah, but anything like food or anything like that, commodities is what they call them, is getting more expensive.
But I found out recently they're being real sneaky with that too. So you just got to be smart. They're being sneaky with everything to make everything on the surface level. You got to scratch the surface. That's why I was saying like with anything, just buy a couple of real physical coins and some Bitcoins, some altcoins, some cryptocurrencies, because you got to have skin in the game to actually like
a lot of people just want to delegate their responsibility to somebody else. It's like a lot of people, I'll get people that ask me like, what should I do? What should I do? And it's like, I don't want to give you financial advice. I want to point you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, you need to make your own decision for yourself.
That's why I said
that's what's going to empower you.
Anything in it, because that's when you're going to learn though. Like when you have a couple $100 in there, you're going to watch the fucking, instead of being on the sidelines and just hearing about it and then going on with your day. No, you're like, what's going on? Why is this happening?
It's responsibility. And like at the end of the day, people want an excuse. So if people actually took their own finances into their own hands, it's like an oh shit moment. You know, if you lose your money, it's your fault. It's your responsibility. But if you were to have it with a brokerage or whatever, and they lost it, you know, it gives you an excuse. Like, you can be bitter about it. You know, people don't want to be.
I think it's just being lazy. Like I said, surface level. People aren't willing to scratch the surface and go beyond.
And
like
that's
really
doing us all a detriment, though.
Yeah, it is.
For the whole picture, because individual people aren't controlling their own finances. We're giving all their power over to these institutions
and then what
that lord over us.
Then what happens is people are like, why is this happening? Blaming the government, like believing in politics and saying like, oh, we need this person to fix this. No, motherfucker, you need to fix your own shit, bro. Like, you need to.
That was the point that I was getting to with the thing about the crony capitalism and the Bush era years. It was the Republicans that were getting paid from Wall Street, and now it's switched over to the Democrats. So Wall Street doesn't care. Wall Street plays politics, but they don't care red or blue.
But the politics is the power play, where it's like that's where the lobbying comes in. And like you said, if you have the power, then people are gonna come at you with money to sway your decision. And at that point, you're just selling out based on the highest bid. Like, all right, fuck it, let's do business with China and fucking give them all of our intel.
Sell us out, you know,
or whatever, you know. It's like
I really think it all comes like all of our issues really start with the money, and politics. You know, that's how they're able to pull all this backdoor shady stuff, is because people don't understand the monetary system. Like, I've been trying to learn about it for 10 years, you know, and definitely over this last year. And I still feel like I'm barely, I get the concepts now.
And that's why I feel slighted. Like I was saying, we never were taught this. It's the opposite,
purpose,
bro. They
almost.
don't know exactly.
Yeah.
They don't want us to know any of this. They don't want us to fucking. And that's why I preach about the internet all the time, because it's that connectivity, then that flow of information where it's like you can learn about it, and then you can access these programs where you can actually play the game. You know what I mean? But learning and connectivity is the number one thing. It's like.
And like that one Rothschild quote about I care not who makes man's laws, give me the power to control his money, and you know.
Yeah, and like back to what we were saying, Rockefeller himself, who started the school systems, he said, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers.
Yeah,
he doesn't want us to think. He just wants us to be drone workers. But now they're actually going to have fucking robotic workers nowadays. So what are you going to do as a human being that's ignorant as fuck and a worker, but you don't know how to make your money work for you, or you know what I mean? You don't know how to start your own business and use your own physical work and energy and make it to where you're gaining from it more. Because if you're working for a company, you're building their wealth.
Building their dream, yeah.
And their equity, or their wealth. You have no equity in that company. You need to have equity. You need to have ownership. That's what it comes down to.
I think that's a great, idea. If we really want businesses, corporations to thrive, and they have done this too, where you have skin in the game. If you have a company full of employees who actually have 0.1% of stocks or whatever, if they actually have a small portion of it, they feel a part of it. They do much better work.
You're right.
The company makes more money in the long run. It gives them the incentive, exactly.
Otherwise, they just clock in, clock out, go home.
They don't care.
Drink some beer.
And why should they either?
And they don't want to improve on themselves. They're just like, oh, well, I get this much amount a month, so I can spend this much amount. I live comfortable. And it comes down to comfortability, I think, a lot too, bro. Like, and that's why I'm kind of cool. I mean, not cool, but like one good thing about this whole pandemic and all what's going on, just this craziness in the world, is like it shook people up and their comfortability. They're like, it's rightfully so. People need to be scared and need to be able to fucking look at their finances, look at their situation, look at their whole lives. And
I think we'll look back at this time like 2020 was the scariest year of our lives.
But it's exciting and like
it gave everybody the time to open up their eyes and go, what the fuck, not just about the virus, but about everything. People had to rethink everything that they knew,
And we have the tools now, the internet, man. I'm going to say it over and over again. Like, we have the tools to gain this information, like what we're doing right now, dude. This is important, and like it's simple. Like, I bought a couple cameras, I've invested here and there, and now
we're participating.
It's one thing, like we could talk about it all day long, me and you, but when we broadcast it out, people, they're putting their ear to it and they're listening, and we can break it down to understandable.
I just want to be able to have our ideas compete, and this is the whole thing about censorship and why it's so dangerous. Because I have no problem talking or arguing with people, you know, civilly
Debating.
about or debating with people about which idea is best.
Yeah,
But if
let's
we can't
do
even
it.
have
Let's
if we can't
sharpen
even have
each
that
other up.
conversation,
Yeah,
though, you
iron
know?
and iron. Let's sharpen each other up, and let's get to a better
Yeah.
place. If I'm wrong, I want to know that I'm wrong, and
It
if
helps
there's
me
a
out in the
better
long
way
run.
of doing
Yeah.
something, or you know,
We just gotta
and
take our
let's-
egos out of it. Just
Yeah.
know, like, I love being proved wrong because that means I'm not making the same stupid mistake again.
yeah,
You know, it opened up my eyes. Oh, now I can do it differently, and I won't be, because you're suffering. You know, your ignorance is causing suffering.
yeah,
So, and if you want to alleviate suffering, then you gotta take responsibility. You got that's the whole thing. You gotta take responsibility of your suffering, and then go about changing it. You know, and how are you gonna change it? How are you gonna provide more value? That's the thing about, you know, Elon's like the richest man because he provides the most value to the world.
yes. Or
That's the beauty
Amazon.
about capitalism. When it's working great, is the more value you bring to the table, the more you get rewarded, and that's why central planning in socialism doesn't work, because people don't have an incentive to do anything about it.
Yep.
They delegate their responsibilities to somebody else. You know,
they blame the victimhood, and they reliance.
That's like economics and, you know, politics and spirituality. It's all interconnected. Like you can't do one thing. Like it all bleeds into each other. Like I think of the libertarian values about self-responsibility. Well, that creates a strong community. Imagine a whole community of libertarians, right? It's like we could have a commune of people that would be great, like better than any communism. If we had like-minded people that took care of themselves so well, then they can add to the society around them. It creates a very strong society, and it's like, yeah, everybody can be armed, but since they're responsible and they don't lie, cheat, or steal, then
and they trust each other. So I want to add that, because I was listening to like KUCR or whatever one day, and this one morning, and it hit me, like this guy was talking about it. I missed it, so I didn't get the introduction. I didn't know who it was, but he was talking about business, and he was like, we need more ethical people in business. We need more morals in business. So that's where, back to like capitalism and business, we think that capitalism is like cutthroat, or it can be, but that's why it takes it. That's why I encourage more people to be capitalistic, more people that have, like you said, spirituality, or like value. I mean, not value, but morals and shit like that, and ethics, to where we are understanding the game, but we're not gonna cut someone else's throat, or like come up on someone else just so we could come up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not right.
I think when our founders went and they said we're forming a more perfect union, that's why they allowed the Constitution to be, you know, adjusted, right, and amended, is because they realized, like, this is the best that we can do right now, and then we'll see if something else comes up in the future, we'll do it differently. But we've been led so far astray from what the framework that the founders envisioned for us, and actually, you know, enacted for years, that we don't need a new system if only we just enacted the rules of our old system, you know, then it would create that level playing field that we all want. And then we can say, like, oh, maybe we don't need a federal centralized government. If you had enough people that were responsible for themselves, you don't need standing armies. If that true capitalism could lead to the dissolution of governments as we know it, you know, we wouldn't need it.
I agree. I totally agree.
Was it anarcho-capitalists?
Yeah.
Anarcho-capitalists is full of some of the smartest freaking people, because they realize that the state is violent. You know? The state is violence.
Yep.
They have the authority. We delegate our authority to the state to do violence because we're not as responsible as we should be. But it's a collective deal. You know, it's like with China, we couldn't do it overnight, because we have other countries that would probably try and take us over, you know. But in the long run, maybe, and this is the hope, that cryptocurrencies can give us, we the people, give us enough confidence that we don't need a flag, you know, and guns to protect our rights. We protect our own rights. I mean, I think that's the vision that I want to see fulfilled throughout my lifetime. I want to see the state have less power and the people have more power. And I think we can do it through what we're doing right now. We're going after the financial system, and if we can get more people on board and crack that, then we can have a government at the federal and world level that isn't out there to freaking stick it to us, man. Mm-hmm. I feel like especially with the news right now, it's all propaganda. They're trying to get you to believe in a narrative so that they can guess which way you're going to react.
Well, that's what, like, just back to being responsible and based on, responsible about ignorance, you know? Like, don't be ignorant, because that's how they're fucking us over. And, like, do your homework and learn the game and fucking get smart.
Need to humble ourselves. It's like, humble ourselves to learning. That was something that I learned in rehab. You know, it's like you got to realize I don't know everything. In fact, I probably know very little. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't try to, you know everything. And always look at somebody that you're talking to or conversing with, that they have something to teach you. You know, really listen. You know, and that's the best thing that I learned, was like actually truly listening and not thinking about just what you want to say next when you're in a conversation with somebody. Like, take your time, take your breath. A wise man
can learn from a fool.
But a fool can't learn from a wise man.
I mean, sometimes. Not always, though.
Yeah. But, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, man,
take a break or what?
Yeah. All right. So break your poo.